Hi, I'm Mars Halick, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the easiest patterns inside the CAGED system. And I'd also like to relate the CAGED system a little bit to my idea about one pattern to rule them all, which is really just the simplest pattern that you can pull up and down the neck all over the place. So first of all, the CAGED system is just a bunch of patterns that go across the fretboard. And the reason it's called the CAGED system is because the chord shapes, if you think about first position chord shapes, C as in caged, A, G, E, and D. When you do one of these shapes, what you'll find is that based on whatever your tonic is, you'll have that same kind of shape. But it won't be called a C chord if you're not in the key of C. If you're in D, it'll actually be your D chord. If you're in G, it'll actually be your G chord moved into a different space. For instance, there's the shape of a C chord moved up to G. And there's a pattern to go with that. But I find that's not the easiest pattern. Two of the patterns are really easy, so let's just do the two easy ones right now. And to me, that's the A pattern and the G pattern. And I'm going to talk about the G pattern first. The G pattern is probably the easiest one. Both the A and the G pattern are very symmetrical. And that's what makes them easy to remember. The G pattern is almost symmetrical, and it's shaped very much like a G chord. It's probably the most obvious one that you can see, oh, there's a G chord that a lot of these notes trace over. So yeah, this is a G chord in G. We'll do the patterns in G. Here's a G chord in G. We can also play it up here. Let's see if I can finger it as a bar chord. Normally I wouldn't do that. But I used to think about it. Probably would be good to add to the repertoire. So what's the pattern inside that? Well, if you're in first position, you start on the 3rd fret. This is right from your G chord, and then all the open strings apply. Again, 3rd fret to open. Then you have 2nd fret 3 times to open, to open, to open, and finally 3rd fret again, the note G. And you can also go down to E. Now the CAGED system works perfectly if you're in a major key. That's in G major. That's going to be your pattern in the G position. If you're doing the relative minor, then it would be E. That's basically 1, 2, 3 frets down from there. Let's take it up 12 frets, because this is basically, these are the same notes as the open ones here. So I do the same thing, go up 3 frets, do that shape of a G chord. So we go 15 to 12, 15 to 12, 14 to 12, 14 to 12, 14 to 12, and finally 15 to 12. And if you want to end up on G, so you can see it's very symmetrical in shape. You've got your open G, or you got your G, not your open G. You've got your G on either end of it. And if you're looking for tonics, there's another G, which is the 12th fret on G. And it's just very close to being symmetrical. Okay, here you're using the 15th fret on the B string, and on the A string, then you're using the 14th fret again. But you're tracing that G chord, and it's very close to symmetrical. So it's really easy, I think. I threw in a couple of the in-between notes to get you the bluegrass pattern there. And that would be just throwing B flat in between the A and the B. But that's just having fun. Let's stop doing that. Stop getting fancy. Let's just concentrate. That is your basic pattern, just the 5 notes. One thing you can do for fun is just do hammer-ons all the way up. Or pull-offs all the way down, or pull-offs, hammers all the way down, whatever, you know. Anyway, just having fun there. Let's talk about the other pattern. The other pattern is the A pattern that I wanted to talk about. And what it comes down to is around this pattern, or like the A pattern here, or most people finger it with all 3 fingers. I like to do just 1 finger. There's a pattern around that. But in the CAGED system, if we're in the key of G, we're going to build it around G. So here's a G, like you got open A, here's the 12th fret is A, you move down 1 whole step, that's 2 frets, 10th fret, and we'll play it kind of power chord style. Let's see if I can get my finger up here so I can hear the E string. But I usually like to finger things like that. But the chord, the shape that's built around that, for playing lead and pentatonic. So we're calling it the A shape, but it's in the key of G, so we're doing it around the G chord that looks like an A. Is totally symmetrical. We do whole step on these 2 strings. So we go 12, 10, 12, 10. Then we have a minor third between the notes on the next 2 strings. So we go 12, 9, 12, 9, and then 12, 10, 12, 10 again. So going back up, 10, 12, 10, 12, 9, 12, 9, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12. So again, 2 easy to remember patterns inside the CAGED system. And if you did the 1 pattern to rule them all, which is all 3 notes on 1 string and 2 notes on the next, that kind of snakes through the whole, as you work up the whole neck with the CAGED system, you could find that's just snaking up the middle and all those notes are in there. They're just played a little bit differently. And actually to relate them, say in the key of G, in the key of G, we do 3 notes and then 2 notes, starting at the bottom. In my 1 pattern to rule them all, and keep saying that. And what's actually happening is you got whole step, and then when you move over and keep your first finger in the same spot, that's a minor third. So we may have felt like we were doing nothing but whole steps, but actually the minor thirds are in there when you're moving from string to string. And that's all that pentatonics are, is whole steps plus minor thirds, which is a half step and a whole step. The half steps have been skipped over. The notes in between where you'd have a half step, those notes have been skipped over. We'll talk at some point about putting those back in there. But when you're using the CAGED system, or basically just playing all the way across, then your minor thirds will be accomplished both sometimes when you're moving from string to string, but also sometimes on 1 string. So, for instance, when we go from the 12th fret to the 15th fret, that's a minor third. If I was playing some version of 1 pattern to rule them all, I would go. So I'd change strings, but here I'm going to do it on the same string, so I can go all the way across the neck instead of moving up and down. So that's how those 2 things relate together. Once again, this is based very much on a G chord that I don't normally play. And the shape of an A chord moved down to G when we're in G. 2 patterns. 15, 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 15, 12. 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, 9, 12, 9, 12, 10, 12, 10. So play around with a few notes at a time. Try to find bluesy stuff. And also we can add some blue notes. And let's see, for instance, if we are in E minor, which is the relative minor of G, we'll still be using the same pattern as G, but we'll be concentrating on the E's. And then the third note of that, so E, G, skipping over the part where we'd have a half step somewhere, A. So the third note of the pentatonic, you could bend up and make it a blue note. Or just play the one in the note in the middle. That rang my bell. I think we'll go there.